Okay. Well, there's a bright star up in the sky at the moment. I pointed it out to Pamela last night as we were lying in bed. Yeah. I said, any time you go up and fix them slates. Anyway, that's the same star that the three kings followed. They were following it because they knew it would lead them to a king who was far greater than they were. Well, they came to a palace. But that palace belonged to King Herod, a vain and cruel king. And he was just about to sit down and eat his dinner. Roast cockerel, roast potatoes, Brussels sprouts and gravy. It was the first ever Christmas dinner, though he didn't know it at the time. Well, one of the kings said, we made a mistake. Because all Herod said was, what do you want? And one of the kings said, we made a mistake because we're looking for a king far greater than you. There's no king far greater than me. If there's a king greater than I, this cockerel on my plate will get up and crow 3 times. Well, the three kings looked at it, and first of all, the cockerel's right leg started to twitch. And then the left one started to twitch. He scrambled up onto his feet and stood there with his feet in the gravy, threw his head back. Cock-a-doodle-doo! And he said, well, all right, that was once. And then again he threw his head back. Cock-a-doodle-doo! It's twice. And for a third time, cock-a-doodle-doo! Well, Herod flew into a rage, and he ordered his soldiers to go out and murder all the firstborn sons that are under 12 months old. And, well, I'm going to spare you the details of that carnage, but them soldiers went out and in what we call the slaying of the innocent now, killed all the young lads in the land, or many take it from me. Well, it's a bit later on, and Joseph was leading a donkey down the road with his wife Mary and a child on the back. They came to a field, and there was a farmer planting corn. They stopped for a breather to watch him, and the farmer waved. The child held his hand up and pointed to the corn. And that corn sprouted, grew and ripened all in one go. So much so that the farmer was able to harvest that crop there and then. But Joseph looked over his shoulder and there was a cloud of dust. He knew it was Herod and his soldiers coming after him. So off they went down the road. When Herod got to the field, he saw the farmer. He said, "Oi, you peasant, have you seen an old man, his wife and a child pass this way?" And the farmer said, "Well, I cannot tell a lie. They did go by here." "When was that?" said Herod. And the farmer said, "Well, I cannot tell a lie. You see this corn that I'm harvesting? I was just planting the seeds when they went past." Well, Joseph and his family had gone as far as they could go that day. They were exhausted. They came to a cave. So they went in the cave and Mary put the child down on a rock. It was really freezing coal in there, and Joseph knew if he didn't do it, something, they'd die of exposure. Well, he felt around in the dark there, he found some dry wood and some dry straw, built it into an eve, and he put a spark to it. He bent down to blow life into that fire, but he hadn't got the breath, he was just exhausted. Then a little brown bird flew down, and he flapped his wings furiously. The spark turned to a flame, but it flamed up unexpectedly, and it scorched that bird's breast and made it all red. And ever since that day, that bird's had a red breast. We call it the robin redbreast. And that's why it features on a lot of our Christmas cards nowadays. Well, the thing was, it got the fire going, but there was a hell of a draught. And Joseph thought, if he got some wood, he'd make a door for that cave, being a carpenter. But he got no wood. And that's where a little spider played its part. It started to weave, side to side, up and down, it started to weave a web right across the mouth of that cave till it was completely enclosed, so it was nice and snug inside. The next morning there was an heavy dew, and it hung on that web, and those strands looked like they were made of silver. Well, Herod had brought his men back for one last look. They were looking around. One of the soldiers said, "Perhaps they're in that cave." Well, Herod shielded his eyes against the morning sun, saw the silver strands and said, "No, they can't be in that cave, because if they had gone in there, the strands would have been broken." So he turned his men round and went off and gave up the search completely. So that's why these days we use silver strands that we call tinsel to decorate our trees and our homes. Thank you.